Hey, hello. Welcome to episode number 32 of the People We Love podcast. I am Adam Choi. What's up? So this week's something that I love is the sun. It's necessary for life. It helps plants grow. It gives off heat. It gives off light. Too much of the sun can be a bad thing too, and there's global warming or whatever, and that might kill us. But besides that stuff, I'm a fan. Anyway, for everything about this show, check out peoplewelovepodcast.com. Everything you need is on there. Social media links. There's an episode archive on there. That's peoplewelovepodcast.com. And my Instagram handle is peoplewelovepodcast. And of course, 5-star positive reviews on iTunes are greatly appreciated as well. So, it took just 32 episodes for it to happen. It being getting a former New York Mets baseball player to be a guest on this podcast. For those who don't know, I've been a baseball fanatic and a New York Mets fanatic pretty much my entire life, spanning 3+ decades now. So this one means a lot to me. Anyway, I'm not just interviewing any former major leaguer today. I'm not just interviewing any former Met today. I'm interviewing former Mets relief pitcher Scott Rice, who has an amazing story of being drafted in the first round of the 1999 draft by the Baltimore Orioles. However, it took Scott until 2013 to make his major league debut with the New York Mets. Scott Rice's story is an epic, amazing journey filled with many ups and downs and heartbreak, but there's also joy and happiness and dreams coming true. And right there, supporting Scott, advising him and coaching him and offering him love every step of the way was his father, Dennis Rice. Let's just dive right into it. Here's Scott Rice. So it's good to see you today, Scott Rice. Thanks for stopping by the studio. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. This is fun.
Yeah, man. How's your day going?
It's been going good. It's been a long day. I was just in Tahoe all weekend, so trying to catch up, but glad I was able to come do this.
Nice. You're on vacation with the family?
Yeah, we went to a wedding, so it was...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it was pretty cool.
It was fun.
Oh, hell yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so it was beautiful. I got to bring my son there. He's the ring bearer and stuff, but...
And your son is how old?
He's 3.
He's 3?
Yep.
And you just had another...
Yeah, I got a 6-month-old son as well, so my hands are full, but being able to, wanting to come do this, like we were talking for how long were we trying to set this up?
No. Yeah, we were talking for a while. It's all good.
But
it's all good,
life's busy for me right now with 2 kids at home. But
that's exciting. Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you've been changing a lot of diapers and doing a lot of that's kind of been your life.
Yeah, for the most part. So,
but you love it.
Oh, it's awesome, man. Having kids changes your life.
For the better?
Yeah, definitely. It keeps you busy forever, but for sure, it changes my perspective. It changed my perspective on things, and I'm sure we'll get into it, but that's a big reason why I'm not playing baseball anymore.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. So why don't we get into it? Why don't we get into your life story and tell me where you grew up, where you were born, and you could start from age 0, wherever you want. Just how you got into baseball and pops. We'll get into it.
Yeah, so basically, I grew up in Simi Valley. Kind of was born here in Van Nuys, lived here for the first couple of years of my life. Parents moved to Simi Valley, grew up there. Kind of, lived all over the place here in LA, coming home and, from off seasons and stuff. But, I got into baseball from my dad. As long as I can remember, I always played baseball.
Like how old do you remember? 3, 4, 5 years old? What are your earliest baseball memories?
I think the earliest baseball memory I had was when I was about 3 years old. I was my mom's family's from Wisconsin, and so my grandpa's taking me out in their backyard, and he's trying to soft toss balls to me. I think I'm 3 years old. I can't do anything. First one he throws to me, I freaking whack at and hit him right in the eye, give him a black eye.
The first ball you hit when you were 3 years old.
The first, but yeah, because he got real close, thinking that I was going to be able to hit it, and I smashed him in the face. So that's one of my earliest baseball memories. My whole life, basically, all my memories revolve around, for the most part, baseball. It ruled my life for the first 35 years of my life.
Yeah, intense. So when you were like 3, 4, 5 years old, you started to play organized baseball?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like mini league, little league, what do they call it?
Yeah, you started from T-ball all the way up. It was one of those. It was like a passion my dad had. My dad played baseball growing up. He was that's what he loved. He played at USC in college, and
so he got pretty far.
Yeah, so he got pretty far until in college all of a sudden he blew out his shoulder, and back then they didn't have arthroscopic surgery or anything. So
yeah,
that derailed his baseball career for a while. But the love of it was always in him. His whole life, his passion was to be like a baseball coach. So, he was always coaching me, always out there trying to, get me to be better and, so it was something we bonded over.
Did you feel pushed into the game at all when you were younger, or at any time? Did you feel like pressure to play, or was it always like what you loved and what he loved and what you both loved?
It was, yeah, definitely. It was always what we both loved. I was always really good too, which helped.
It makes it more fun.
Yeah. But it was fun, like I don't want to skip forward too much, but
sure.
As a kid, I remember, like during the summers growing up, it was always, my dad worked in construction. He built custom homes. And so we'd be going from, in the summers, when school was out, we'd be going from job site to job site, and I'd always tag along with him. And in between, from one site to the other site, he'd always find a batting cage, and, we go to the batting cage, or he'd always find a field and we go play catch or whatever else. So that was kind of what my summers were like, growing up, was, going to construction sites, checking on jobs, and then going and playing baseball with them.
That's cool. So when you were 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, and obviously must have been pretty good right away because you almost killed your grandfather, who it was, or
yeah, it was my grandpa. Yeah,
you almost killed him. But did you know that you were good? Were you already exceptional at that point at baseball compared to the other kids your age?
Yeah, I was. It was another memory I have from T-ball was they would always bat me last in the order because everyone batted through the order. So they knew every time I came up, I was going to hit a home run.
Really?
So they'd always bat me last. I guess.
Were there fences?
No, there wasn't a fence. So I just hit it past everybody. And then I guess when we were on the field, the guy would hit the ball and I'd go run and get it, chase it down. And then, no one else was really paying attention. It was T-ball. And then I'd sprint all the way in and try to tag the guy before he got out home. So it was one of those things just early as in my blood. I picked up on the game quickly. And it was just kind of something that I just was always, I guess, I was always advanced at.
Yeah, you were advanced. You enjoyed it more than others. You were better, and was it more that, as far as the hitting, were you just bigger and stronger than everyone, or were you just more skilled at it, or a combination?
I think it was both.
Both, yeah.
I think it was both. And I think it was a lot of it was, those summers of spending the time. I think with anything, natural talent's going to take you so far, but the repetitions and practicing and doing all those things.
You were already, you had the talent, and you were already practicing a ton.
Yeah.
And of course, year round in California, the weather permits that.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's really all I was doing. I was doing that. I was playing any sports, so it wasn't like kids these days, it was always whatever I can do outside, all day long. It was playing baseball, basketball, soccer, whatever.
Did you get good grades in school?
Yeah, I had to.
I
had to. My parents would threaten me that if I didn't get, good grades, that I wouldn't be able to play my baseball games. Yeah. And so that was enough motivation for me to make sure I was
Nice. Mm-hmm. So when did you start to become a pitcher? And what was your baseball life like when you were a little bit older, 7, 8, 9, 10, that type of age?
Yeah, even then.
What do you remember from then?
Yeah, 7, 8, 9, 10. Baseball wise, I was a really good hitter. I always was a hitter. They tried to throw me on the mound. I was like Wild Thing from the movies, or Mitch Williams or whatever.
We'll get to the walks later.
Yeah, exactly. I'd throw faster than everybody else, but I would definitely walk everybody. I couldn't throw strikes. And I hated pitching. I really didn't like it.
Why not?
A lot of it was I didn't have the attention span for it. Maybe I had ADD or something growing up, but I just didn't want to be out there trying to throw strikes and doing all this stuff. I just wanted to hit.
Yeah, everyone loves hitting.
Exactly.
Everyone wants to be a hitter.
So with pitching, it was one of those things I always looked at. I'm like, well, if you get the guy out, you're supposed to get the guy out. But if you don't get him out, then you failed. And so me being a perfectionist, I always thought, like, if one guy got a hit off me, it was like the end of the world,
Yeah, they always talk about how the hitter, if they're good, that means they get 3 out of 10 successes. Mm-hmm. But if you're a pitcher, you got to get the guy out 7 to 8 times out of 10.
I mean, if you get the guy out 7 times out of 10, they're hitting 300 off you. Right. That's not good. Yeah. You got to be 8 or 9 out of 10 really to. So it was a whole different shift in baseball for me, like doing that. It was. So I like the fact of hitting a little bit better in that aspect.
So you were a resistant pitcher around that age, and you probably, I don't know how much specialized it was at that age, but you were a lefty, so you probably played mostly first base and outfield, or it didn't even matter at that point.
Kind of. Actually, growing up in Little League, catcher is one of the most important positions. They get past balls, guys start stealing bases. So finally, we had some crappy catchers back growing up. So eventually, I just told my dad, I'm like, look, let me get back there. So I got back there with his old USC helmet that he wore, used as my, when I was a catcher, and I basically, I was a left-handed catcher. I even tried out for my high school team as a catcher.
Why are there not more lefty catchers? It's because they have to do like a snap throw to third base. What is the reason? There's got to be.
In general, it's just you're throwing into the right-handed hitter more often.
And there's more right-handed hitters.
Yeah. But a lot of it is the throw to third base as well.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think maybe we'll see it eventually. Someone who's just so quick with their hands, and I feel like there's such a split between lefties and righties and switch hitters that I don't know if it's even that dominant. Right, there's still more righties, but I want to see a lefty catcher.
Yeah, it'd be cool.
One of these. I used to play catcher too. Okay. I think my dad used to manage Little League as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's why he threw me back there. Just like, oh, you're reliable. You could catch the ball. You could do the basics of baseball. We'll throw you back there.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what it is. I mean, it's important. It's the most important position, going all the way up,
Yeah, I did not have the arm to hose down runners at second base, though.
Yeah.
So that the position outgrew me, I suppose. But, okay, so then what about when you start to get into like age 10, 11, 12, and a little bit older? Where's your baseball life?
10, 11, 12, it was kind of the same. I love baseball. I was sitting there, growing up, it was Will Clark was my favorite player. Once he retired, or he was still playing actually, but, kind of shifted over to Griffey and people like that.
Always the lefties.
Always the lefties.
Got to be the left-handed hitters and the left-handed throwers as well.
Left-handed throwers, guys with, really nice, sweet swings. So I tried, mimicking them.
Of course, I love all those. I bat lefty, but I throw righty.
Yeah.
One of those.
So, yeah, that it was kind of the same thing. It was just baseball was my life. I started playing a lot of basketball as well. And it was interesting growing up. I started I started having a lot of joy playing basketball. I was also tall and stuff as well. So it was a good mixture. It kind of kept me balanced. I see so many kids nowadays that are playing baseball year round, and that's all they do. And I try to tell these parents, like, you need to give your kids a break.
They'll get burned out. Yeah. Yep.
But, I saw so many of my friends that just played only baseball. And it was right around this age when they just all of a sudden started quitting for no reason. They weren't, they were still good players, but they just didn't want to do it. And that was kind of part of it. So, baseball was always my passion, even at those ages, but to be able to get into another sport like basketball and enjoy it as much as well, I think helped me.
How good were you at basketball compared to baseball? You were significantly better at baseball?
Yeah. I mean, I was tall, but I'm way too white to be playing basketball.
Honest answer.
True. I mean, I'm 6'7". I'm the height of Kobe, but I was playing center, so I'd be
at that age.
Yeah. I mean, at that age, I was always still the tallest and stuff, but it was, I was good when I was younger, but I got to a certain age where it just didn't correlate.
Yeah. When you were 10, 11, 12 years old and playing baseball and excelling, were you starting to get attention from just starting to get more attention, whether from like high schools in the area or even scouts or were people starting to notice like, hey, this guy, might be going somewhere with the game? When did that start? When did people start to notice that you might have those types of ability?
Yeah, I started getting a little bit of that, but I mean, it wasn't the same as like it is now. It was, there wasn't travel teams that much. There wasn't really a lot of scouting around then. It wasn't really till I was scared to death I wasn't going to make my high school team.
Really?
I had no clue. I knew I was the best. I knew I was the best or one of the best players that I've played against and I've seen. But all of a sudden, I'm like, well, this is high school. Like, I hope I make the team.
Yeah, you just didn't know.
Yeah.
Sure. Especially in California, where it's like, pretty competitive and the level of competition is pretty damn high.
It was. So, it was interesting. The high school I went to, we're a powerhouse in baseball. And so, not only did I just not make the team, not only did I make the team, but it was, I was the only freshman to play. I played on the JV team, which at that time was an honor. Like no freshman ever played above like the freshman team because it was just such a
freshman, a JV, and
a freshman, a JV, and varsity. Yeah. And so, no one played freshman as a varsity because the school was so good. But yeah, I was the only one to actually go to JV as a freshman, which was, at that time it was huge. So,
and it was mostly because of your hitting ability, or just just everything. You just
both.
were good enough.
Yeah, it was both. Like they had a first baseman. I always played first base, so they threw me in the outfield, so I would hit, and then they would have me go play. If I didn't pitch on the JV team, then they would have me go to like the freshman team to pitch. That type of stuff to make sure I got my innings in.
And how did the pitching go in high school?
It was all right. I still hated it, and I didn't want to do it very much, and so if they asked me and I had a choice, I'd say no, I don't want to. It was really forced upon me. It was kind of one of those things where like, well, if you want to, as I got into high school, it was, scout teams wanted me to come out, or
scout teams meaning to run through.
Yeah. So what they do here in California is they have like a scout, for the Orioles, will start a team together, and what it does is it kind of brings like a lot of the top prospects or that he thinks are good and he wants to get to know them a little bit more. He'll bring them together and you'll play like in a summer league, and you'll play against maybe like the Red Sox scout team, and you'll play against the Royals scout team or something. And so all the scouts will find their guys so they can kind of get to know
and
you
you played in these
yeah. So I start getting asked to play on those teams and stuff like that.
And this was like sophomore, junior, or when was this?
Yeah, this was like my sophomore, junior year of high school.
That's pretty incredible. Like, what did you think when like someone representing a major league organization wants to like put you in this group of other talented people?
It was cool. It was interesting, but they kept wanting me to pitch. And I'm just like, well, I'll only pitch if you let me hit. It was one of those things. So they're like, okay, yeah, like sure, you can hit as well. So yeah, so I mean, it ended up like I was very resistant to hitting. Like I was a good hitter. I probably would have been drafted as a hitter.
You were resistant to hitting?
I mean, resistant to pitching.
Yeah,
I was a good hitter. I liked hitting. I was a better hitter, way better hitter than I was a pitcher. But I mean, being 6'7" and lefty, and throwing in the mid 90s, they were, obviously they're gonna.
I could tell what was going on there.
Yeah,
they're like, you pitcher, lefty, get out there.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's exciting. If not, it was mostly the walks. You were just wild and you did not have the confidence.
Yeah, I'd either walk you or strike you out.
Yeah.
So it wasn't necessarily not having the confidence as much as it was just not wanting to do it.
Yeah.
It really was. It was just, pitching hurt. Your arm would be sore the next day. It'd be a lot of, be having to work your ass off for, 5, 6, 7 innings. And, I'd rather just, play some first base and, hit a home run or two or, whatever. And
throwing a baseball, I hear and I know, it's just an unnatural motion.
Yeah.
It's not something a human being is really intended to do. That's why part of the reason I'm guessing so many people get hurt.
Yeah.
We're not built for it.
There's no better feeling than, hitting a ball solid and hitting a home run.
Kind
There really isn't, and I, eventually I learned to love pitching, but, at that time I was, pretty reluctant to it.
What kind of pitches were you throwing in high school? Just mostly fastball, all fastballs.
Yeah, so I was throwing all fastballs, and I was trying to work on a changeup a little bit. My dad, he pitched growing up. He kind of hurt his elbow a little bit.
Was he a lefty young. Also?
No, he was a righty.
Okay.
Yeah, so he hurt his elbow growing up, so he always made sure I didn't throw a curveball, I didn't throw a slider, any of those things. So I really didn't start learning one until I got into high school, and I started tinkering with it a little bit. But again, I didn't pitch enough because 1, I didn't want to, and 2, I wasn't consistent enough for the team to really appreciate me. So so I didn't really learn it until basically my senior year is when they, the seniors above me in high school, they graduated, and so my high school coach was like, "Look, you got to pitch for us. You're our best guy. You're our guy." And at that time, by the time I got to my junior year, I was getting scouted really heavily.
Really?
By colleges all over the place, by pro teams and stuff. So the summer going into my senior year, I knew I really didn't have a choice. Like everyone wanted to see me pitch.
You were scouted as a pitcher in your junior year.
I was scouted as both, but it was mostly, as a pitcher.
How were your performances and your statistics or whatever in your junior year? Because you're saying it was a struggle and you didn't enjoy it, but were you out there dominating for the most part and just like you had a small walk problem? Like what was
I honestly don't remember what the numbers were.
Yeah,
but
they saw talent.
Yeah, it was talent. They wouldn't put me in like close games or anything like that.
They wouldn't put you in close games, and you're being scouted by professional scouts. For your talent, and they won't put you in close games.
We had a good team, man. We had a really good team. They didn't need to. We didn't have anyone that got drafted pitcher wise, but guys that got D1 scholarships and stuff like that. So we were stacked at that position.
There was talent.
Yeah, so they didn't necessarily need me. So they just said, "Look, we're gonna ease you in. We know we're gonna need you next year. We're gonna put you in some situations where you can kind of hopefully start to figure it out." So eventually I got onto the mound enough to where I started enjoying it a little bit more. I started realizing and coming to an understanding that, as much as I wanted to hit, my future in baseball was going to be, you know,
Right.
through getting on the mound.
Were other guys being scouted by pro scouts as well, or was the scouts just there for you, or you don't even really know?
For the most part, they were there for me. You know, they came to see all the guys, obviously.
Sure.
But there would be scouts that would call my, you know, we played like 2 games a week. There'd be scouts calling the head coach or calling me or whatever, trying to figure out, okay, what day are you going to pitch this week?
Yeah.
We'll come to that game.
Gotcha.
So
That's exciting. What did you feel extra pressure or anything like that from the extra eyeballs on you?
at first a little bit, but you know, it was really cool too, because I mean, not only did I, you know, buy what I was bringing by having those scouts come to see me, in turn, it did get a lot of the other guys on my team scouted.
Yeah,
you know, that
that's
might
cool.
not have had eyes on them. So it was cool in that aspect too, because I think it helped out some of their careers to get them noticed. But yeah, as far as pressure, I mean, a little bit. Yeah, a lot of it was because I wasn't as comfortable. You know, I didn't feel any pressure when I was hitting. You know, I was a lot more comfortable doing it. But as far as a pitcher, yeah, it was uncomfortable for me.
Yeah, did your dad have any advice or words of wisdom when you were going through high school and pitching and getting more and more attention? What did he make of all this as your baseball? He must have been excited that he can see that your talent is starting to flourish and get attention. But what was his kind of reaction to all this?
Yeah, for sure. You know, I had to lean on him a lot. He was always my coach growing up. You know, every little league team I played on, he was always my coach. So once I got to high school, you know, he wasn't my coach anymore. So I got like, you know, I had started hearing it from different people. And honestly, like the knowledge that he had and the way that he went about the game, it was hard for me to hear it from someone else telling me some things that, you know, wasn't necessarily things that I bought into. And so it took me a little bit to kind of, you know, my high school coach and I didn't get along actually at all. You know, so it was really leaning on my dad a lot. And learning to get through that adversity of having it where, you know, your high school coaches, you know, like I was saying, scouts were calling him and he was telling them, well, why don't you just come to the game and find out? He wasn't helping me. You know, scouts were asking him to fill out evaluations on me and he wasn't necessarily filling those out for them. And so my dad had to start doing those and he had to start, you know, finding it, you know, and evaluating me in ways because, you know, my high school coach, I don't know if it was, you know, what the reasoning why. I think he was trying to, looking back at it now, I think he was trying to help me. I know, like, you know, he didn't want me to play basketball, so he wanted me to start getting ready for baseball. He knew that, you know, baseball was my career and he was trying to push me to, you know, to get better. So he wanted me to be out there year round. But, you know, I was in basketball. I loved basketball. It was relaxing for me. I wasn't the best on the team. I didn't have the pressure of having to go out there and have everyone rely on me. So I got to learn from other people, you know, how to have different roles. You know, before on baseball field, it was always, I had to be the best and I wasn't the best. I let my team down, but being in basketball, I had to be, you know, it was a different role and it was
Contributor.
Yeah, exactly. And I had to learn how to do that and how to, you know, set my ego aside and be like, you know, like I'm going to set picks and I'm going to get rebounds and I'm going to play good defense and, you know, I'm not going to be the number one option to score. So it helped me in a lot of ways looking back on it. But, you know, the same thing with going with my head coach in baseball, him and I butted heads. And so it was, you know, I learned a lot from that situation too. But having to go to my dad, and he's the one that I really leaned on and got most of my advice from throughout that.
Do you remember any of the specific things, not necessarily personality wise with your coach and the scouting report or whatever aside, like, was it like, approach to the game, strategy, fundamentals? What was it that that your dad maybe had, and your previous knowledge? Where was that different than what the high school coach was? Where he was coming from?
Yeah, a lot of it was the approach to the game. A lot of it was
X's and O's, so to speak.
Some of it, yeah. Like he would call my pitches, and you know, like the number 9 hitter would be up there, and he'd be calling like first pitch curveball.
Come on, man,
and stuff. And I'm just like, yeah,
throw the heat,
right? I'm like,
high school,
exactly. I'm having a hard enough time throwing strikes, anyways. You know, and he's calling off speed pitches. I'm like, you know, at the time, I mean, I was throwing so hard, I was just, you know, I can just throw fastballs through almost everyone in the lineup except for maybe 1 or 2 guys, and you know, take my chances. So that kind of stuff. We'd butt heads because I'd start shaking them off, and I'd have, you know, scouts asking me stuff too. I'd be having, you know, sit downs in my living room, and scouts would be like, well, why are you throwing this? Why are you doing this? And they'd be giving me advice.
Yeah.
And so then I'd go and try to like talk to my coach about it, and he'd be like, no, you do what I say. And so
yeah,
it was hard. It was, I think he had the best intentions in mind. He's still the coach there now. He's a good coach, but I just think that our approach to the game
it's
is
just different. Yeah, different opinion.
So it is, it is what happened. It is what it is. But it definitely shaped me. It helps. The way you look at it back, any adversity you have, prepares you for what you're doing.
Makes you more patient. Makes you more understanding. See things from different people's point of views.
Yep, exactly. At the time, I hated it, but
yeah, you should have just been like, Coach, it's not just my dad who has a differing opinion.
Yeah.
These guys who work for the Baltimore Orioles and the Boston Red Sox, they said this. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Right, exactly.
So you're in high school. You're going to your senior year, and I'm guessing you had a great senior year in high school baseball.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I had a really good year. So it was a whirlwind. I was having 30, 40 plus, college D1 schools offering me scholarships. So
incredible.
So, I had, all, 30 baseball teams were, calling me, sending me letters, wanting to set up meetings with me, people flying in from, the head guys from New York and from
What are you
Arizona
thinking when this is all happening?
All over the place. Yeah.
What is your family thinking? What are you thinking? What is the rest of your school thinking?
It was surreal, man. It was crazy.
You're a celebrity.
Kind of, yeah.
It was in that world, at least.
Yeah, it was interesting. I think that just to see it all happen so quickly, and then you next thing you're having agents calling you, and you end up hiring an agent, and then they're going over the mock drafts. I'll never forget it. I was sitting there with who my agent was at the time, and we're talking about, we're out at dinner after one of my games, and we're talking about projections in the draft, and I was thinking, like, if I can go in like the top 10 rounds, that would be so cool.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but unless I go in like if I go in the top 5 rounds, then, maybe I'll sign, but I'm not sure,
Because the money's better when you get drafted higher. Is that?
Yeah. I always wanted to get signed, I always wanted to sign, but my parents were big on school. They both went to USC. My whole family graduated from college. They're like, you're going to school for sure.
There's time for that later, Mom.
Yeah, exactly. So exactly. So yeah, my agent was sitting there, and he's just like, yeah, we're thinking you're going to get projected to go, somewhere in, the first round or the supplemental round. And I was floored. I was like, no.
You really had no idea?
No idea. It was always, even it comes back to the whole thing. Like, as I was kind of, I didn't realize how good I was. I really didn't. I never really, I don't know if it's modesty or what it is I wouldn't say it's modesty, but it's just, I guess I didn't pay attention enough to everyone else. Like I said, I was scared I was going to get cut from my high school team.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, when you started to get all this attention in your senior year, being recruited by colleges and pro teams, did you get a big head? Did you start to get an ego? Did it affect you, maybe not in a negative way, but did you feel those feelings?
At first I thought just kind of everyone was going to get them. I'm just like, everyone just probably gets these letters, or this is just something that everyone gets. And then it just kind of kept coming, because at first, a lot of guys get it, and then, and then they get one, and then I get more, and then more, and then more, and like they're not getting them as much. So yeah, towards the end, it was interesting. It was weird. It was, it's hard not to, your first taste of notoriety or fame or whatever, success, whatever you want to call it. It's hard not to get sucked into it.
So, but it sounds like it just mostly just felt good more than, and you enjoyed it more than it leading to getting, you getting a big head or anything. Like, just seemed like you enjoyed it.
Yeah, for sure. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the ride. I didn't really believe it all when it was happening. So it didn't really, it was one of those things that just wasn't really sinking in for me.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what happens? So the draft is approaching, and I guess you graduate. From your senior year, you have a great senior year in high school. Mm-hmm. Did you guys win? Did you guys have any winning?
Yeah, we were a really good team. We went to the semifinals for like CIF, which is like state kind of thing, and we ended up losing to James Shields. It was me versus James Shields. He was a junior at the time, and so we're playing their team, and Yeah, I mean, it was crazy how many scouts were at that game, between me and him. There were so many of them. They were like wrapped around like the outfield.
Yeah, I could talk about baseball forever. I feel like I have so many questions, and we got to get to your minor league career. But just one more high school question: Do you play against or with other pros in your high school? Do you remember? In addition to James Shields.
Yeah, there was a lot. There was a lot of guys. Gosh, I mean, I played with and against so many guys for so long.
Yeah,
I mean, it was just like
it's too many.
Yeah, there's so many of them. It's hard to even remember where we crossed paths, whether it was high school or little league or minor leagues or whatever. It's just like it's funny, man. You could say a year. I could tell you the team and all these things, and there's things that come up, but it's really after so long. I mean, we've done it for growing up. It's hard to even tell.
You probably
where we
have crossed paths with some of these guys multiple times over the years in different teams in different cities.
Yeah.
I would guess. Okay, so what happens on the draft day?
Draft day was interesting because it was one of those. The internet was just getting around, right? So the draft was on the internet.
This is 90.
This is 99.
99.
Yeah. So the draft's on the internet. You're basically sitting around and it's draft day. And so I didn't go to school that day. A couple of my friends decided to stay home with me, knowing I was going to get drafted at some point.
This is what month? This is June. June.
Yeah. So we graduated the next week from high school. So I stayed at home from school. A couple of guys with me and didn't really know what was going to happen. The internet was around. The draft was kind of on the internet, but it wasn't like showing all the picks. It wasn't really keeping up.
It was a little janky.
Yeah, so it was still the AOL, had the modem coming up.
Internet,
yeah. So it was crazy. So you're just sitting around. I had like my agent with me, and we're just like waiting for a phone call. And so we're sitting there waiting for a phone call, and my agent gets a call, and it's like another guy gets drafted, or he's kind of, and he calls somebody else and whatever, and then I remember him going out of the room and making a phone call, and he's kind of whispering and talking real quietly and stuff. And he comes back in, he goes, "This is the 5th round." And I'm like, well, crap, I guess I'm going to college, so it's in the 5th round. I haven't gotten a phone call yet. So he was like, hold on, let me make, he makes another phone call, and he's outside, and all of a sudden our phone rings. And we're just like,
while he's outside, your phone
rings. He goes outside for a little bit. I'm trying to remember. This was so long ago. Yeah, so he goes outside because I'm going to make another phone call, and then comes back in. And then he came back in, and he's like, "All right, it's about the 5th, it's about the 7th round now. You're going to get, you should probably get a phone call soon," is what he said. And so so the phone rings, and he picks it up. I'm thinking, okay, it's going to be the 7th, 8th, 9th round, something like that. I'm like, this is going to be really cool. Obviously, right? I get drafted.
Yeah.
I'm not disappointed. I'm like, this is really exciting. But the same token, in the back of my head, I'm thinking, well, my parents are never going to let me sign. I'm going to have to go. I'm going to go to college. So he calls, and it's the Orioles, and they're just like, "Hey, Scott, I'm sorry it took so long for us to call you. We had 8 first-round picks, this year, because the Orioles they unloaded on everybody. They're like, we had 8 first-round picks this year, and so it's been taking a long time to get through that. So I just want to let you know that, we drafted you with the 7th of those 8 first-round picks."
Wow.
And so, yeah. And, obviously speechless. It was, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, that's so unexpected, because you probably had, if it's the 7th, 8th round of the draft, or 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th round, hours are going by.
Yes.
So you're assuming I'm not a first-round pick.
Exactly. I'm just thinking, okay, like, I'm going to college. I'm not a first round pick, but then he tells me that I actually ended up being, I was the 44th pick overall. So it was, that was like the beginning of me going, wow, like I'm really good. I'm looking down the list of guys that were drafted after me, like college guys I just watched in the College World Series or whatever else. And just thinking like, wow, I'm getting drafted like before a lot of people. Like it was first time it really hit home where I was like, all right. So yeah, it was, obviously a moment you'll never forget.
Who did you call your dad or right away? Or
no, they were all right there, So so we hugged and
gotcha.
Cried a little bit and all that stuff. So it was interesting. So yeah, so then the baseball season was still going on. So after that, it was about 12 o'clock, 1:00, something like that. And I think we had practice or maybe even a game that day. I can't remember.
So they let you play in that game even though you skipped school that day? They made So they made an exception for if you get drafted in the first round.
I'll never forget this. It was interesting. So I go back to school and like lunch had just ended, so it must have been about 12:00 because lunch was just ending, and I'm parking my car and I'm walking into school and I just hear them over the loudspeaker. They're saying it's making a special announcement. And the special announcement in the whole school, as I'm walking, the hallway is empty, lunch is ending, people are getting back in their classes, and they're announcing that I was just drafted in the first round of the MLB draft.
Yeah.
And it was just like chills down chills all over my whole body, just being like, holy shit, man. Like they're announcing this to the whole school, and I'm like walking through like a ghost campus and just like hearing them announce my name. It was pretty crazy.
Because it wasn't really for you. It was for the other students. Like they were just announcing it to the school.
Yeah.
And you heard it like just you without anyone else around. That's
exactly.
That's intense.
Yeah, it was weird.
In a cool way.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I could see getting the goosebumps from that.
Yep, for sure.
Okay, so when do we report to the Orioles?
We report to the Orioles? We reported. I went and I signed. When was it? About middle of June. I reported right after, right around the 4th of July. I can't remember the exact date, but right around July 1st, somewhere around then.
So excited! It must be so exciting.
So excited, man! I was just like, I was pumped. I'm riding high. It's just like all of a sudden, I'm just like, wow, wait a second! Like I have so much confidence. I'm just like, you know what? Like I just got drafted in the first round. I am as good as I've always thought I was. I am having, all these people I got this notoriety now. It's like, I got a big signing bonus, baseball is.
It's all happening.
It's all happening for me. Everything's set up for, success, so so Orioles are like, hey, we're going to sign your contract. Then once you sign your contract, we want to send you out to Baltimore, have you come out to Camden Yards. We're going to, you can work out with us for a couple days, do a
with
physical.
With the pro team.
Yeah. With the major league team. Sign, do a couple physicals and stuff like that. So I fly into Baltimore and they fly me first class and, I land and, go straight to Camden Yards and they put me I go in the big league clubhouse and they put me in a locker and I'm right next to Cal Ripken Jr.
Wow.
Yeah. They put me in the locker right next to him. So I'm sitting there and, it's incredible. He's sitting there right next to me, like just right to my left. And we just start shooting the shit and talking a little bit. And, I said earlier, my favorite baseball player growing up was Will Clark. Will Clark was on the team. And so I see him at the other end of the clubhouse and it was just like all my dreams came true. One of like my biggest memories was growing up, going to a Dodger game, they were playing the Giants and it was, how the Dodger Giants rivalry is.
Sure.
I grew up a Dodger fan, hardcore, but anytime the Giants came into town, I put on my Giants hat.
Really?
And I'd wear it
because of Will Clark. Just
because of Will Clark. I mean, I would put the eye black on like Will Clark. I'd wear the pop-up glasses. Yeah. I mean, he wore Easton batting gloves. I wore Easton batting gloves. You
wore this to the park? All this to the park or just
No.
But
when I played. When I played, yeah, I looked exactly like him. So I'd wear the hat. I had a first baseman's glove that had Will Clark's signature in it. All that stuff. So I remember going and getting my going to try and get his autograph after a game, leaving my glove on the seat, and someone stole it. And I just was crying,
That's the funniest thing because I left my baseball glove. I brought it to the Shea Stadium sometime in the 90s, and I left it in the bathroom there, and someone stole it as well. Yeah, I lost the glove at the park too.
Yeah. So it was
sucks.
It does. You get that glove just how you like it, and then
for sure.
You lose it, but
so how did you like act normal? Do you feel like you're like a fanboy at the time, or how do you maintain? How do you be professional, or are you just kind of like you're hiding your childlike enthusiasm, or you're not?
You don't. I was a geek, man. I was geeking out. It was, I was 6'6", 6'7" at the time. I weighed $190. So I'm walking out there and they give me this uniform. It doesn't fit me at all. The pants are too big in the waist, too short in the legs. The hat's too big. All this stuff and. Will Clark just, as soon as I get out there for stretch, he just goes, hey, boys, who's dressed up the fucking fungo? And he just started riding me, just talking, just saying everything.
Yeah.
And it was it was so cool to
Yeah.
have, the guy I grew up with idolizing. And I didn't care what the hell he was saying. He was talking to me.
He's paying attention to you.
Exactly. So it was really cool. And, I was just floating on the cloud. They had me go out there to throw a bullpen, and I don't think I threw a ball even close to the catcher. It was just, I was just so amped up, so nervous.
They're going to come back for your signing bonus.
I know, man. I thought they might. So, yeah, after I go out in the field, we go up, they put us up in we go up to a restaurant up at the top of like the warehouse, and sit down with the owner and have dinner with the owner, and, go into his box during the game. Yeah. So I'm just going, man, like, this is amazing. They put me up in a suite at like a hotel, and I'm just, eating room service. It was like, just living the life. I was 17 years old. My parents,
crazy.
Yeah, my parents had to co-sign my contract for me. I couldn't open a bank account, any of that stuff. And so, and I'm just living like the life of a big leaguer. For a couple of days, just thinking, this is how it is. This is how you get treated. This is what baseball is. So it was intense. And then they flew me to Sarasota, Florida, which is where spring training is. That was where the rookie ball team
All
was.
right, now we're getting into it.
Yeah, now we're getting into it.
Let me pull out your whole minor league history here.
Yes.
This is where the epic journey really kind of begins in some ways. Mm-hmm. With the Gulf Coast Orioles in Sarasota.
So let me tell you, they fly me into Sarasota, which nobody flies into Sarasota. It's a little private airport. So again, I'm thinking, I'm flying into a really sweet place. They're treating me special and all these things. Someone comes and picks me up, and they're in like a Dodge Neon. And I'm going, okay, this is cool. Like, I'm not really fitting in this thing, but, I got all my bags. I got all these suitcases. The stuff barely fits in there. Stuff's like sticking out the window. The guy doesn't speak much English. And he goes and we drive. I try to talk to him, and he's just not really saying much. Drives to the middle of nowhere. We pull up into some hotel. I have no clue who this guy is. He could just be lying saying he was with the Orioles. Who knows? There's no cell phones at the time, And so drops me off in the middle of this hotel and just goes, all right, see you later. I'm like, what the hell do I do? I go check in, and this hotel is shady, man. It's like, there was roaches everywhere. I mean, it was not a cool hotel, but that's what they threw you up in. And so doesn't tell me anything, doesn't tell me what to do. Just goes, all right, here's the hotel. So finally I find some other guys, and they're just like, I just start following them around. I'm just like, okay, where are they going? This is where it looks like they're going to be.
Other players?
Yeah, other players. So big van pulls up, big white van. All of us hop in. There's some dudes from Dominican. There's dudes from all over the place. Drive us to Florida, and we get into drive us to the fields. And we walk into this clubhouse, and there's no air conditioning in this room. It's July in Florida.
Oh my God.
And we have big swamp coolers in this place. It was incredible. I couldn't believe it. All of a sudden I'm go from, big leagues, Camden Yards, eating crab cakes with the owner of the Orioles to this is the bottom rung, and this is where the journey begins.
Is it almost purposely done that way to have such meager condition? I mean, I know everyone's always like looking to save money and economics and this and that, but it's almost like part of the culture that you earning
at
your
the time,
stripes.
yes. At the time, it was a little bit. It was kind of, you need to earn what you get, and you need to understand. You need to be appreciative of what you get and things like that. So, yeah, at the time, it was. It's not like that anymore. They treat the guys a lot better than at that time than they did at that time. But yeah, it definitely strengthens you. It definitely makes you realize like I'm at the very bottom, and I'm not as cool as I thought I was about 10 minutes ago.
Humbling.
Definitely.
You got a lot of stops here in your minor league career, so I'm going to kind of let you go through it and spend as much time as you want on these stops. Because some you may just want to have a couple of sentences about, others you might have a longer story about or what have you. So you're with the Gulf Coast Orioles for a couple of seasons. I see 99 and 2000.
Yeah. So that was me trying to figure out how to pitch. Again, I was going to go to college. I was going to be a hitter and a pitcher. And that was one of the stipulations with the colleges I was talking to. It was like, we're going to let you hit. You're going to let you pitch. You're going to, and whichever one works out, it works out. I get to pro ball, and that was the first question I kept asking. Like, can I hit too? Can I hit? Can I hit? And they're just like, Get out of here. You're a pitcher. You're a pitcher now. Learn to love it. And so there's a lot of pushback from me. I hated it. I didn't like, I just didn't like pitching. I wanted to hit. I'm like, I want to hit. I want to be part of it. I hated the whole, I was a starter. I hated the whole, I'd pitch one game and then I'd have 5 days off.
Right.
I'd pitch one day, have 5 days off. And I wanted to go out there and help the team every day. So it was a big adjustment for me to get, I already put enough pressure on myself as a pitcher. And then to know, I could pitch bad. If I had a bad outing, I had to wait 5 more days to try to redeem myself, that type of stuff. So it was tough. It was tough struggling. And the other thing too is, when you're a high draft pick, especially, you have a lot of people that want to help you. And so it would be, when you're in the lower levels, like it's in Sarasota, which is where like the Orioles spring training headquarters were, there'd be coordinators that would come through. There'd be a lot of different people, rovers, a lot of different coaches coming through, and special assistants to the GM, whoever it was. And they'd be there to work with guys, and they would always try to work with me. So I would have 4, 5, 6 different guys tell me, different things. One guy wanted me to, do my wind up and start going over my head. One guy wanted me to learn a cutter. One guy wanted me to, drop my arm slot. The other guy wanted me to raise my arm slot. All
different contradicting things.
Yeah. So no one was on the same page with it. And you're giving a 17-year-old kid that doesn't know how to pitch from the already.
That's tough.
Yeah. So there was not a lot of congruency in kind of like the message they were trying to send to me. So it was tough because I tried to do it all. So one guy would tell me to do something, I'd do it. The next time it's another thing. So it was as you can see with my stats, it was pretty inconsistent.
Maybe there's a reason the Orioles haven't won a World Series in a few decades.
Yeah. I mean,
that's part of it.
I think that was baseball in general at the time. I do remember, maybe not. Because I remember when I scouted or when I signed, my scout said, welcome to pro ball. But unfortunately, you just signed with the worst organization in baseball.
Wow.
And that's probably why they had 8 first-round picks that year.
Maybe.
So. But yeah, it was a lot of advice, a lot of people with good intentions. But unfortunately, the message, it was a lot for me to kind of handle at that time.
Gotcha. So you were I'm looking here, you were with the Orioles organization from 99 to 2005, correct?
2006.
2006, yes. Playing with the Ottawa Lynx and in AAA.
Yeah.
So you did make it up to AAA with the Orioles. Mm-hmm. What do you remember about some of those other stops with the Bluefield Orioles and the Delmarva Shorebirds?
Yeah. So here's
Aberdeen Ironbirds.
Here's the funny thing.
Frederick Keys.
Yeah. If they didn't have so much invested with me, I would have been released a long time ago.
What's that?
If they didn't have money invested in me, if I was in a first round pick, I would have gotten released already. And it got to the point with my career, so I played rookie ball in Sarasota, Florida, my first year for the Sarasota Orioles. Second year, I went back. Well, they have a rule that you can't play in that league 3 years. So the next year, they had to send me to the Bluefield Orioles.
You had to get a promotion.
And so I had to go there. And I went to Bluefield Orioles, and, that's Joe Mauer's in the league, and they got Hank Blaylock in the league, and they got, a bunch of guys in that league. And, Yadier Molina was in that league. And I, me being a first rounder, I was a top prospect in that league, even though I'd had 2 terrible seasons before. So I go in there and I do okay. I didn't have a great year, I don't remember what my stats were, probably like a 4 ERA, something, maybe a 5.
For the Bluefield?
Yeah.
4.12?
4.12. So yeah, I mean, it's not
58 hits only allowed in 63 innings. That's not bad.
Yeah, probably 58 walks as well, but
28. Mm-hmm. Little less than,
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, it wasn't great, but you could see I was starting to kind of get it a little bit. But then the next year I couldn't play in Bluefield again, so they had to send me to Delmarva, which was the short season A team. Didn't do very well there. Struggled as a starter. So halfway through the year, Cal Ripken's team, the Aberdeen Ironbirds, it was their inaugural season, which was another short season rookie ball team. They sent me down there. Actually, they put me in Delmarva. They put me as a reliever, I believe. So that was the first time of me getting out of the bullpen. So that was my first taste of the bullpen. So it kind of changed my perspective from then on, where I realized it was pretty cool being able to come help the team every day. It was the closest thing to being a position player that I could. So I kind of liked it. Well, then, Ripken's team started up and they wanted to have me come down and and play for that team and be a starter again. So I went down there to start, but the whole time I'm just thinking, man, I would much rather be a reliever.
Did you express that at all to
A little bit, but they're like, everyone was just like, look, the organization wants you to be here. Like, they're pushing you, like, just do what they say, listen to them. They know what's best for you.
Yeah, when you're a young kid, I guess, and when you're a young minor leaguer, and the organization in the major leagues and these coaches who are so experienced are telling you something, it's hard for you to fight that, hard for you to argue that. Not that you're going to anyway. It's just like, what can you do?
Exactly. So after that year, they sent me back, after, where was I? Aberdeen, right? After Aberdeen, the next season, they sent me again to A-ball because I couldn't play with that short season team again. So again, because of necessity, and this is where I'm starting to think like, man, like if I don't put up a good season this year, like it's over. Like I did, I had the most success I had was not very much.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, like it's been how many years? This is my 5th season going into, and I'm still at like the bottom rung only because I have, I'm only into A-ball because I have to be, like I'm sucking right now and it's bad. So I got desperate. And that's when, they decided to put me in the bullpen in Delmarva. And something clicked for me then. It was just like one of those things I learned something that I started to harness something that propelled me and propelled my career.
This is
2003, I believe. Yeah, is that, I started to embrace fear and I started to love fear. And that was a big motivator for me. Was fear.
Meaning in what way? How so?
People react to fear in a couple different ways. People either get deer in the headlights look, or they embrace it and they dive in. It's like one of those things like, you see a burning building, people either run to it or run away from it.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where I like loved it. I loved the spotlight. I started to like relish in, I was more afraid of I wasn't afraid of failing. I was more afraid of not living up to the challenge and answering the call and being there for my team. And that was kind of part of the, I said, grew up playing basketball growing up, learning that in baseball, I realized like I didn't like being the starter and being the star in that aspect, but I did like having a role for the team that helped then be like one of those guys that can be a role player for the team and to be able to help them in situations. So I loved being the jam guy. I used to call myself the janitor. I come in and clean up messes.
Yeah.
And it would be tight situations, and I would love coming in. I wanted to go in. I wanted to come in and face the best hitter on the team.
I think that's the right attitude for a reliever,
yeah.
for sure.
One-on-one, there's a situation the team needs me, and it's like, yeah, I can get pumped up for this and I can do this. Like, put me in. So that's where, I started using the fear and realizing that like, a lot of it in baseball, especially, I can, when I was a starter, my first 3 innings were usually pretty good, but by the 4th, 5th, 6th inning, I didn't have that mental focus. I couldn't keep it long enough.
It's more mental focus than physical.
Yeah,
you think even going to the 5th or 6th inning?
Yeah. So as a reliever, though, I started learning like I can go in there and for an inning, I can go balls to the wall, and I'm going to go harder than you, and I'm going to let my fear in my drive, and I'll rise above my fear more than you will, and that type of stuff. So that's what I learned. I started harnessing then, and it was interesting because all of a sudden I went from being like the long man reliever, last guy on the team. I'm there because I was a first rounder. I had to be there, to slowly work my way to the back end of the bullpen, to getting to the point to where the manager wouldn't put me in games because certain times, because he knew the closer that the organization wanted to be the closer was going to blow the game. So as soon as the closer would go out there, he'd have me start warming up.
Wow.
Because basically, so all of a sudden I became I found a niche to be like an integral part of the team. And, that was the start of me building my career. I made the All-Star team that year. I ended up, I believe, is that the year I got called up to High A as well? 2003.
And
I went to
then Frederick Keys, yeah.
Yeah, so I went up there.
Carolina League.
Yeah, spent, less than half a season there. And then next year after that, they just kept throwing me in the bullpen, put me into Double-A, made the All-Star team in Double-A. They ended up putting me as a starter, trying to try me out as a starter again. I was able to do all right. Then they sent me back to Double-A again, wanting me to be, wanted me to do a full another season of starting to groom me, going, okay, this guy's starting to get it. We're going to put him back in. He's going to start. I made the All-Star team again in AA as a starter this time.
Were you embracing starting again at this point? Because you kind of...
I figured out how to... Yeah, I was figuring out just how to harness, harness my emotions, harness pitching. I figured out, it took me like, okay, I was like, okay, if you start me, just give me one inning and let me build and then work into 2 innings and work into 3 and then work into 4 or 5 and work my way up, I can start getting this. But it was when you were throwing me out there in the fire and saying, okay, you got 100 pitches, like go figure it out. It was hard for me to figure it out for those 100 pitches. I was better at building off of a short stint, I guess, is the way that it worked for me.
Yeah, I got you.
So then halfway through the season, I make the All-Star team. At the All-Star break, manager calls me in. It was Dave Tremblay, who ended up 2 years later being the manager for the Orioles, said, hey, the organization wants you to go in the bullpen. They're going to get you ready they're going to call you up in September. So I go to the bullpen, end up finish the year strong, and then, crickets. I didn't get a September call up.
This was at the end of
2005.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're with the Bowie
Bay Sox.
In the Eastern League for the Orioles.
So, so then I didn't get a call up then.
How disappointing was that when you expected you were expecting you would? You said.
Yeah, it was super disappointing. It was
that
like
sucks.
It made me so mad. The year before that, I went to the Arizona Fall League. And I was starting to get that notoriety again. I was starting to play with the top, the best of the best guys again. I was starting to build my reputation back up as being, the first round pick and living up to my potential, I guess. And to have that happen, for them not to call me up was just, I couldn't understand it. I just couldn't, it was really frustrating. So, I ended up, they're like, we're not going to call you up, but we do want you to go to Venezuela. We want you to work on some more things. We think you need to, you're just not ready yet. We think you need to, work on a couple of things down in Venezuela. So I was like, all right. I go down to Venezuela, start working on the things, and I'm doing really well. I'm doing really well down there. And it was frustrating too, because every single American guy got called up. The Orioles called me up and they're just like, hey, we want to re-sign you. We want you to, sure. I'm like, you're telling me all the right things. I'm finally a free agent after 2006 going, sure. Like I'll re-sign with you guys. If you guys tell me, what does that mean? You didn't call me up. Why would I re-sign with you guys? And they're like, well, we think we're going to put you on the 40-man roster. We think you're going to be a big part of our team next year. You're going to go to spring training, have a chance to make the team. And they told me all the stuff I wanted to hear. So I'm like, sure, I'm going to sign. Ends up, as soon as I signed, they fired their GM. They fired everybody. It was a whole new front office. And so I go to spring training and they got a whole new thing, so I ended up going to AAA, and it was my first experience in AAA. It was pretty interesting. It was like guys like Sandy Alomar Jr. and I'm playing against. I'm playing Fernando Tatis was on my team. I'm finally playing. Once you get to
with
AAA,
major leaguers,
especially back at that time. Like before, it was always like like AA was like the league where it was like all the prospects, and it was like you're playing with like guys your own age, but it was like the cream of the crop. All of a sudden you get to AAA, and it was a mixture of some good players, but it's also a lot of old veteran guys. And so it was really different. It was really like interesting because you start facing guys that had big league time, and you start seeing different at bats are taking off you. You're seeing them like taking pitches and being a lot smarter, and you're starting to learn this chess game that you didn't have to learn in AA, because in AA you can overpower them with your stuff and you can outsmart them. These guys wouldn't think as much, but all of a sudden you're facing men.
Yeah.
And it was a whole new thing, man. It was
with the Ottawa Lynx in AAA in 2006.
Yeah. So that was the first time in baseball. I got my mojo in a way. I'm figuring out kind of what I'm doing, and that was the first big test for me to like really see where I was at. So
it looks like it all went okay statistically in AAA.
Yeah, there were some ups and downs, but for the most part, again, it was I was their guy out of the bullpen. It was when shit hit the fan. I mean, I was the guy that they called. I was so yeah. It was a successful season. And how it works with relievers as well. Statistics are sometimes
Misleading.
You go out there and you have one bad game, you give up a grand slam, and it takes you a whole month or two of not giving up a run to get the, to get that down. So, yeah, overall, it was a pretty successful year. So, again, I'm thinking, okay,
Major leagues are coming.
I'm one phone call away. And so I remember my manager is Dave Tremblay, and he didn't really like me that much. He was a real serious guy. And so he was an ex-teacher, never really played baseball, but was just very serious. And I'm not so much, I like to have fun. I like to go out there during batting practice and, power shag and, chase down balls. And I really enjoyed playing baseball, and I would go out there and I would have a really good time. But then when the game came, I was 100% serious.
Sure.
But, I'd ride him sometimes. He was a Notre Dame fan. I was a USC fan. And so I don't know if he took it personally or not. I don't think again, it was just similar to my high school coach, where just our approaches to the game were a little bit different. And I remember thinking, I'm pitching really well. The Orioles lefty reliever just got hurt. I'm watching a game. We're sitting in the clubhouse. We had a day game. I'm sitting there with my roommate, who was also a left-handed pitcher. He was a starter. He was from out here as well. And the manager calls us in. He goes, "Hey, you see that? The guy just got hurt. I just got a phone call." I'm like, he goes, "Berkins, Rice, why don't you guys both come in my office? I got to talk to you guys." So I'm thinking okay, I'm getting called up. I don't know why he's calling him up. Maybe we're both getting called up, but I'm for sure getting called up. And he goes, "Rice, I just wanted you to be in here to hear this." And he goes, "Kurt, you're going to the big leagues." So total dick move, right?
What the hell?
This guy, total dick move, right? Calls me into the office to tell me that my roommate is going to the major leagues.
What the hell?
And just kind of stick it up my ass.
Wow.
So, yeah. So that drove me, man. That was something. And
wow.
Yeah. So then, he ends up staying up there for basically the rest of the season. Again, September call-ups come up. I'm, pitching well. I'm thinking, okay, it's going to be my shot. They're going to call me up. He calls me at the end of the season. Goes, "Hey, just want to let you know they called me and told me who the September call-ups were. They also called me and asked me for my opinion on who I thought should be called up. And I want to let you know that when they asked me about you, I recommended that you don't get called up."
Wow. Why not?
And that's what I said. I said, "Why not?" He goes, "I think you need to work on your PFPs, which is your pitcher's fielding." Basically, he said, "I don't think you're a good enough fielder."
Fielder. Okay, first of all,
yeah.
This is September call-ups, and what is the Orioles? What was the Well, the Orioles may have actually been a decent team then.
They were okay
in '98.
They were okay. I don't think they were making the playoffs then. But yeah, it was just he was getting set up to be the manager for the next year, and he knew he was, and so yeah, so he kind of told them, "Look, I don't want him." And so that was tough to take, man. It was
wow.
To be able. It was like one of those things. I felt like I was doing everything right on the field, but he didn't like me because of something of the way that I was personality.
Yeah.
He didn't like my personality, and so he took it out on me.
Wow.
In that aspect. So yeah, so that drove me, man.
Yeah, I got you. So we're in 2007. How did you get to Texas, to the Rangers organization?
So then I became a free agent, and this time, I wasn't going to re-sign with the Orioles. Especially they just signed Tremblay to be their manager. So
yeah,
I knew that I knew my days with the Orioles were numbered. So it was my first taste of free agency. It was crazy. I remember free agency opened up, and I got a call from a couple teams, but my agent called me and said, "Hey, I think your best opportunity is the Rangers. They're going to be they're a team that needs a lefty." They had CJ Wilson was in their bullpen at the time, but he's like, they need a second one, and you could be it. Like, they really like you. I signed with Texas, and I was just like, all right, gonna go to spring training in Texas. I had a couple of friends on the team, so it seemed to be a good fit. Go in there, and they love me, man. They're like treating me completely different than the Orioles ever treated me. They're doing, treating me great. So my first outing
with Texas
in spring training, I blew my elbow out. So, I'm in there, I'm competing for a job. I got, inside track to make the team out of spring training, and I blow my elbow out. And at the time I didn't know I blew it out. So this is all of a sudden, I'm at the peak of my career, right? Everything's going upwards. I got, everything I've been doing on the field is I'm just climbing and climbing and climbing and getting there. And and what I did is I tore my flexor tendon. I didn't know it at the time. It was an injury that no one ever had. So I tried throwing through it. They give me an MRI. They're looking at my UCL and they're just like, no, everything's fine. It's fine. There's nothing there. Well, I'm like, well, I'm telling you, it doesn't hurt down there. It hurts over here in my forearm. They're like, well, there's nothing there for you to hurt. So, that's just muscle. So, we'll rest it. We'll give you a cortisone shot and, we'll call it, in a couple of weeks, you'll start throwing again. I start throwing. I just kept re-injuring it.
Yeah.
So finally the season goes by and, I didn't pitch the whole season and I'm just like, well, my arm still hurts. Maybe I just take the whole off season off. And so I get a call from the Dodgers. Dodgers want to sign me. I go to spring training with the Dodgers. This time, now all of a sudden, I'm not going to major league camp. They sign me only to go to minor league camp. So
this is in what?
2008.
2000.
2008. So the Dodgers signed me to spring training. All of a sudden, I'm going. I'm about to make the major league team. I'm climbing up. I'm going to major league spring training. All this stuff too. Boom! I don't pitch for the year. I had this weird injury. And now the Dodgers offer me a minor league spring training. Get to spring training, and it's just my arm is not right. It's just my velocity is down. Everything's down. Dodgers like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, I don't know, man. Like my elbow still hurts. Like I went and I had a couple MRIs from the Rangers. They say nothing's wrong with it. So they're like, well, we're going to have to release you. We don't want to have this liability. You need to go talk to the Rangers and get it fixed. So I call I call my agent at the time. And he's like, well, why don't you go try to play independent ball? Maybe, the Rangers say there's nothing wrong with your elbow. Maybe you just need to go play independent ball.
What about seeing another doctor?
Right. And that's what I said. I said, well, what about seeing another doctor? And he goes, no, don't worry about seeing another doctor. He goes, I'll get your MRIs from
the Rangers.
And I'll send them to my doctor in New York and I'll have him look at it. And so I'm like, okay, cool. So his doctor, he goes, in the meantime, go out, you go play for the Long Island Ducks in Long Island. I'm like, okay. So he calls me up, a couple days, a week later, something like that. Goes, yeah, the doctor looked at him, said they were fine. Said everything's good. You're good to go. So I'm like, all right, well, I go out there pitching. I go out there pitching again and again. And it's clearly something's not right. So, I'm already in New York. So I go fine. I'm going to go and see this doctor that my agent told me to go see. So I go see Dr. Alchek, who is the Mets team doctor. And he's the doctor my agent said. So I get an appointment with him. I go sit down. I go, yeah, my agent, sent you my MRIs. Like, what do you think? And he's like, your agent never sent me any MRIs.
Wow.
I'm like, oh shit,
Wow.
So my agent never actually sent the MRIs. And so he goes, but I'll give you an MRI right now. So I go down, get the MRI, come back up, and he goes, yeah, your thing's fine, but your flexor tendon's completely torn. And I'm like, well, they told me that there's nothing wrong with my flexor tendon. He's like, and there's nothing I can tear that. So yeah, so ends up, I had this torn thing that got misdiagnosed. I end up missing 2 full seasons, a season and a half, just until I finally found out what it was.
Wow.
Fly home, have the surgery performed at the Curling Job Clinic by Dr. Yoakum, have another year rehab. So I end up missing 2.5 years because of this injury that got misdiagnosed.
You must have been super pissed and demoralized. I mean,
yeah, it was one of those things where my career was, I came in as a first rounder, just get dropped down because, I couldn't do it. I couldn't, I wasn't adapting to the level, the experience well enough. Finally have to reinvent myself as a reliever, start climbing up to the very top, and then boom, get this misdiagnosis. And all of a sudden I'm starting at the very bottom again.
Yeah.
So this is where, so what year would this be? This would be 2009, 2010.
Yeah, you were with the Ducks in 2008, Newark Bears 2009, San Antonio in the Texas League.
Yeah. Okay.
09 and 10.
Yeah. So halfway through 2009. So I had my surgery in 2008, about June. So after about a year, June 2009, I start feeling like I'm ready to start pitching in games again. So I start calling up all these teams just saying, hey, like I'm back, I'm ready, I'm healthy, come give me a shot. I'm just having to swallow my pride at this time. I'm calling teams begging for a job and everyone's saying no, 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 no. So finally my dad just goes, hey, he's like, if you want this, you got to go take it. I'm like, well, how do I do this? He's like, drive to Arizona, show up at team spring training facilities, and demand to throw for him.
This is like you're like Willie Mays Hayes in Major League,
Yeah,
just breaking into the Major League camp.
Mm-hmm. I was. So I'm going around and I'm going to these teams and I'm like, let me throw for you. Let me throw for you. And the White Sox see me throw. And the years before when I played in Venezuela, Ozzie Guillen was the manager at the time. He was, for the White Sox, he was the general manager of my team in Venezuela. And so I kind of had a relationship with him. Mm-hmm. He comes out to watch me throw and I'm hitting like 91, 92 on the radar gun and whatever else. And he just goes, sorry, man, I thought we were going to throw harder. I'm throwing 92 in a bullpen. Like,
yeah.
So whatever. So they don't sign me. End up.
They wanted to be wowed.
Yeah. All these other places that, they're saying no, no, no. Finally go to San Diego to the Padres place. And Paul DePodesta, who's Moneyball guy.
Of course, yeah.
He says, sure, I'll watch you throw. Sees me throw. Doesn't say anything. Goes, all right, well, thank you. And so I go back to my hotel room just thinking like, all right, where am I going to go tomorrow? What am I going to do? And I get a phone call and it's Paul. And he goes, hey, we want to take a shot on you. We liked what we saw.
He's with the Padres at this time.
Yeah, he's with the Padres. He goes, so we're going to send, we're going to sign you. We're going to have you throw for a couple weeks and then we're going to, see where it goes from there. So they signed me, end up sending me to AA. And I was rusty. I had my stuff was back. My slider was back. My, fastball was back, but I didn't have my command back yet. So, it'd been 2.5 years since I pitched in a game. So yeah, it was, so halfway through the year, about August 1st or something, trade deadline comes and they traded for, I think, Randy Choate or some lefty reliever or something. So they gave me a call. They called me up and go, hey, look, like, we know you're coming off rehab. We know you're struggling. But Paul was just like, we got to release you. We need to make some roster moves. So again, demoralizing, right? I think I'm coming all the way up and boom. And then just get, slammed back. So end up trying to, my heart was just, I'm like, I'm done with baseball. I don't want to do this anymore. Like I've had too many ups and downs. My dad just says, go play for these New York Bears. Go play for them. There was Tim Raines Sr. was the manager. I knew his son. I played with his son. So I got on that team and my heart just wasn't in it. And after that season, I just like, I just don't know if I want to do it. I don't know if I want to do it. But that was, my dad and I would have lots of long talks that off season. What year was that? 2010?
Yeah, looks like after 2009, heading into 2010 season.
Yeah. So, he's the one that didn't let me give up because I wanted to give up. And he was just like, no, he goes, you can do this. Like you have this dream. He goes, don't give up on it. He goes, I gave up on my baseball too soon. He goes, I didn't want to have surgery. I didn't want to have, go through all that stuff. And he goes, I regret it every day of my life. He's like, he was one of those guys who wanted to live vicariously through me. I never got that sense from him, but he was always that one that wanted what was best for me. And he knew
you wanted this.
He knew I wanted this. He knew that I could be stronger than this. He knew I had the strength in me to go through it. And it was, so he pushed me. He made me. He would sit there. I remember he'd get out this Baseball America director with everyone's phone number, and he would just lock me in. He would just go, "You sit in that room, and you don't come out until you call 10 teams." And I'd be like, "I don't want to do it." And I'd sit there, and I'd be just like looking at that directory with my phone like right on the table, just like it'd take me 10, 15 minutes, and I'd just be sitting there going, then boom, make a phone call, be like, "Don't answer, don't answer, don't answer, don't answer." Wouldn't answer, I'd leave a message, hang up. Another 10 minutes, call another team, don't answer, don't answer, Eventually, it was, what year was this?
2010?
2010. So where did I end up playing in 2010?
You played with the Tulsa Drillers with the Rockies? Or
yep.
the San
Okay,
Antonio
so this is what happened. Yeah, the Tulsa Drillers. So this is what happened. So finally, I keep calling these teams and everyone says no. Everyone says no. People who did call me back said no. So I'm like, my dad goes, you got to do the gauntlet again. You got to go to spring training. And you got to go to every team. So I start going to those teams. I start, throwing for teams, start trying to do everything. And this is like right before spring training. So it's like, it's embarrassing, man. Like I went to a Dodgers tryout and it's like an open tryout. I mean, there's dudes that were like 60 years old. There were girls. There were like people that had like no shot, but it was just like one of those. It was like a spectacle.
Really an open tryout.
It was literally an open tryout for anybody.
Yeah.
And there was a couple guys that were decent, but I mean, I was by far the best one out there, and they didn't sign me. I went through for the White Sox again. they didn't sign me. I went down, and so I went, and when I was with the Orioles, they had a pitching coach who was then a pitching coach with the Rockies. I go down and I throw for him. He goes, hey, I throw for him, and then afterwards I don't hear anything from him. So they're down in Tucson. I'm driving. I'm like, this is it. Like, my baseball career is over. I'm like driving home. I'm like crying, like, just like, I'm going home. What am I going to do with my life? Like, baseball just didn't work out for me. I gave it everything. I called every team. I did everything. No one will open the door for me. And all of a sudden, I'm about 3 hours out of Tucson, and I got a phone call from Bo McLaughlin with the Rockies. And he's just like, he was like, hey, he goes, where are you? And I'm like, halfway to California. And he's well, we got Stretch in about an hour and a half. You think you can make it? And I said, I don't know, but I'll sure as hell try. Whipped my car around, and I just booked it down to Tucson.
Which is where Rockies spring training.
That's where the Rockies spring training was. I get there, and he goes, look, we got 22 left-handed pitchers in camp. He goes, you got to beat them all out. If you can beat them all out, then
oh, wow.
Then yeah, you got a shot. So I was like, all right. So this time I kind of figured out what my pitches were. I learned this, that's kind of where my trajectory started going back when I was in Bluefield. I had a pitching coach that said, dude, your ball moves so much, learn to harness it. So I started trying to harness a sinker. Well, back with the Rockies, they had a guy named Aaron, God, what was his name? I can't remember, but he threw the best sinker in baseball. So I learned his sinker in that camp, and I was back. Like, again, I was harnessing the fear of baseball, going, man, like, I'm having a second, chance at this, maybe a third chance. And I just dominated that spring training, beat all of them out. He's like, look, he goes, we weren't expecting you to do so well. He goes, we don't have a spot for you, but we can't release you. He was like, I'm going to send you to AA. So I'm like, all right. I go to AA. I'm one of the older guys on the team, and I just absolutely just dominated. I had, the best year. I think I had at the All-Star break, had like a point something ERA.
Yeah.
So finally I'm like, all right, like, this is it. Like, I'm getting my feet back under me. At the All-Star break, they call me up to AAA, go up to AAA, do well again, and they're just like, wow, like, you might get a September call up. Like, we're not sure, what's going on. Ends up end of the year, don't get a September call up. And so I'm like, all right, well, they're at least going to want to resign me. I'm at least going to go to Rockies next year, make the team, right? Bo calls me up, and he's the pitching coach, and he's like, hey, like, I know you did good. I feel really happy that I was able to help you get back on your feet, but we're just not going to re-sign you. We have some prospects coming up, and, they're just our guys. And politically, it's just politics of baseball.
They're going for the younger.
You're a free agent again. Yeah.
Sucks. Oh,
yeah,
man.
So all of a sudden they're going for the younger crop. So I'm just like, shit. Like, again, I think I had a good season, and then boom, they don't want to re-sign me. So that off season, I'm just like, okay, like, who's going to sign me? And I get a call from the Cubs, and the Cubs want to sign me. They're saying the same thing. You got a chance to make the team at spring training, all this stuff. Go into spring training, have like a 1 ERA through spring training. They release me. Sorry, guy, we're going with the young guys again.
Oh, man.
So again, I'm back. I'm back, from square one. So I ended up. I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna, go to independent ball.
This is 2011.
This is 2000 ball. Yeah, 2011. I'm like, I got to go to independent ball. My dad's. I'm talking with him about it, and he's just like, you got to go do this. So, I'd call my dad after every outing. Every time after I pitched, that was, he knew that as soon as I got in the car, he'd get a phone call from me. So, my whole career, it was me and him together.
That's awesome.
He lived the highs and lows with me. So, I mean, to see him go through it too, he went through this whole roller coaster with me.
That's cool. It's amazing that just to recap, this is 2011, and you got drafted in 1999.
Yeah.
So you're still pushing. What is the? A lot, obviously, majority of people don't even make it to the major leagues at all. But of the ones that make it, they probably spend 4 or 5 years in the minors.
Yeah, maybe. I think that's the average. Is like a guy plays for 5 or 6 years, and then he's either his career's over for the most part.
Yeah, either you made it or you're done.
Yeah. So, I'm like this anomaly that everyone's just like, I'm signing with these new teams. And they're going like, wait, you've been playing for this long and you haven't got to the major leagues. Like, what's going on? How are you still getting jobs? Like, how are teams not giving up on you? Like, how have you not getting called up? There's so many questions about my career. Like,
yeah. Why are you here? Why are you not in the major leagues, or why are you not doing something else?
Yeah, exactly. And I was surprised too at the time. I was like, I don't know. the one thing that people always told me, and the one thing like my dad always said is like play until they take the jersey off your back. As long as they keep giving you a jersey, keep playing.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what I kept doing. So, you know, the Cubs released me out of spring training. And I decided, fuck it, I'm going to go to Long Island. I'm going to play for the, wait, was it Long Island I went to?
No, it was the York.
York. I went to York. So a coach I had with the Orioles, the pitching coordinator. So this is where the catching coordinator, this is where the Orioles keeps coming back to me. All these old coaches, you know, kept hooking me up because they knew, or not hooking me up, but, you know, the relationships I built with them. So that he got me on the team there. And, you know, I took off right where I left, you know, I picked up right where I left off with the Rockies the year before and just was doing well. And again, it was one of those things though, you know, I had to blaze my own trail, and you're stuck in independent ball. You're not getting seen by a lot of people, and you got to find a way to get yourself out of there. So my dad and I would talk, and we came up with a plan, and my dad said, look, every Monday, he goes, I'm going to make a list, and I'm going to make a list of all the left-hand relievers in single A, double A, triple A, and the major leagues. I'm going to follow every single one of them, and I'm going to give you their stats. I'm going to let you know who's doing good, who's doing bad. I'm going to rank the teams for you.
Oh,
and
wow.
He goes, you're going to call those teams in order of the top 15 teams, and you're going to call them every Monday.
Of the teams that have the weakest lefty relievers?
That look like they need lefties. Look like they need lefty relievers who are doing bad, whatever it was. So, I mean, he was on it, man. He was sitting there, and he was acting as my agent. My agent at the time, who didn't, you know, send my...
You didn't fire that guy?
Yeah, you know, he was gone.
Okay,
so good. I'm working on this without really an agent at the time, you know, and, you know, so it's just me and my dad, and we're like just trying to, you know, navigate through this. So I'm calling teams. I'm calling them every day. I'm calling them, or every Monday. And, yeah, so finally I'm starting to get some people, and they're starting to realize like, hey, like he really wants this. Like he does. So the guy, the head of scouting with the Orioles was now the head of player development for the Dodgers. And I called him, and he said, you know, we're gonna give you a shot. So we're gonna send you to Double A. And so this was my dream come true, right? Like for me, it was like
the Dodgers.
End of the day, I got to play for the team I grew up, you know, pitching for. Like this is, or loving, you know, this is gonna be awesome. Go to Double A, and, you know, still doing what I do, you know,
Chattanooga Lookouts.
Yeah, putting up great numbers, doing amazing. And it was the first time all of a sudden, like I'm getting some notoriety, I'm getting respect. And the Dodgers weren't all about like who they had money invested in. They were like, you're doing really well, and we like you. Like we like you a lot, and we want, you know. So at the end of the season, they didn't call me up to the major leagues or anything, but they said, look, we're going to re-sign you. They re-signed me right away before the season even ended for the next year. And you're going to go to, you know, major league camp, and you're going to have a really good chance to make the team. So again, you know,
is that a script?
Right.
Invite you to come to spring training. You'll have a really great chance to make the team.
I know.
They're all reading off a script.
It really is. You know, that's kind of what it is. It's, you know, and that's what just kept happening. It was always like, yeah, like you're right there. You're right on the cusp. So, yeah, go to spring training with them. And it comes down to, I have a great spring training, comes down to the last day. We're in the Freeway Series, last day before the season starts. And, you know, we're playing at Dodger Stadium. I go out there pitching at Dodger Stadium for the first time in my life. It's just, you know, dream come true. Wearing a Dodgers uniform.
And a spring training game versus the Angels.
Spring training game versus the Angels in a Dodger uniform at Dodger Stadium. Vin Scully announcing my name. Like, wow. You know, the whole bell, you know, all the bells and whistles of, you know, the Dodgers. Everything I could have ever dreamed of. And after the game, you know, they call me into the office. They're like, look, we got one roster spot to make this opening day roster. It comes down to you or Josh Lindblom. And they said, we're going to decide tomorrow.
He was another lefty as well.
He was another righty.
A righty reliever?
Yep. So I go to the stadium the next morning, and they call me into the office, and they said, you know, sorry, but you're going to go to AAA. He didn't make the team. So it was the most heartbreaking thing ever for me. Just, you know, lots of emotions, just of all this buildup of keep getting close to then getting right there, you know, have your head in the door.
For the Dodgers, let alone your favorite team that you grew up watching.
Yeah, it was, I just remember going out to the player parking lot at Dodger Stadium and my dad being out there and him and I just standing in that in the player parking lot, just bawling our eyes out. And it wasn't as much sadness. It was the most incredible, like, touching moment we ever shared, because we were just, it was a culmination of everything, but a lot of it was just, we were so upset that I didn't make the team, but it was also that I got to that point, that I pitched for the Dodgers in a way, like, even if I didn't ever make it to the major leagues, like, I got to that point.
It was a celebration of your journey.
It really was. Yeah. That's what it was. It was a celebration of my journey. And then we got there, and it was like, you're going to get here. Like, I mean, you just missed out now, but it's going to happen now. Like, it was pretty awesome. So, so I went to AAA with the Dodgers. Then they wouldn't let me throw in back-to-back games. I was treated, very well. I was treated as if, making sure that I'm prepared, because I'm going to get called up any day.
The Albuquerque Isotopes in 2012.
It was, make sure you bring your suit with you on the road every trip. Make sure your bags are packed. Make sure you're ready. The whole season goes by.
Wow.
And then at the end of the season, they make a trade, get a couple of veteran lefties because they're in the playoff race, and they're like, sorry, but we made it, we're going a different direction. And, but we do want to sign you back next year. So that's when I said, fuck this, again, with baseball. I'm like, I'm going to take my career in my own hands.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to winter ball. I was just so pissed. I'm like, I'm gonna show teams that I can still keep pitching. I haven't run out of gas. I'm gonna play a full major league season. I'm gonna take this winter ball team for another month or two, so I can get prepared for next year to pitch like a 162 game schedule. Because in minor leagues you only play 142.
Sure.
So go to winter ball, and I'm doing well down there in Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, free agency opens. I know that it opens up at midnight. At 12 o'clock East Coast time. So Dominican Republic's at East Coast time. And so I'm thinking, okay, like, once it opens up, maybe the next couple days, I'll maybe get a phone call or two from some teams or whatever. Midnight, 12:01, my phone's blowing up. I'm getting phone calls from teams just going, we need you. We want you. Like, let's go. Like, sign with us. There was like 5 or 6 teams that were calling me at that time.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so it was crazy. And so one of those calls was Paul DePodesta. Again, he goes, I remember, with the Padres, I've always liked you, all these things. He goes, I'm with the Mets now. And he goes, I'm going to bring you in and you're going to make this team. He goes, you're not going to try out for this team, whatever. He goes, you're going to come in, you're going to make this team. So I said, yeah, that's great. I've heard this story a million times, I'm like, that's cool. I get it, but there's a lot of other teams have been talking with me as well. I'm talking, I had the A's. The coolest thing the A's did, because they were the Moneyball team, is they gave me this huge like presentation, like this nerd presentation with like graphs and charts and all this stuff, all about me.
When you met with them after the 20. This is
the
after 2012.
2012, the winter is 2012.
And you met with the A's.
I didn't meet with them because I was still in Dominican. So they're sending me all this stuff through email, like these graphs and these charts, and PowerPoint presentations, and they're teams are sending me long things and all these long emails and everything else, and I was like overwhelmed. I go to the I wake up the next morning where I'm waiting at the hotel with the other guys on my team, the other Americans there, and I'm like, didn't you guys get any phone calls last night? They're like, no, what are you talking about? I'm like, oh shit, I got like 6 of them. So, I'm like, man, this must be a pretty good thing. And so I'm still trying to decide. Then all of a sudden, I was still in the Dominican, and I get a phone call, and it rings, and it comes up as like a New York number again. I'm just like, okay. I answer it, and he goes, hey, Scott, this is Terry Collins, the manager of the Mets.
Wow.
And he goes, we need you. He goes, we need you to come here and whatever, so basically, the big league manager calls me and tells me, I want you on my team. I want you to come. Like, I've seen your numbers. I've seen what you do. Like, you're fitting perfect with our organization. So that pushed me over the top. I'm like, sweet. The first thing I did though, too, because I was so accustomed to it, was every major league team that called me, the first thing I did is looked up, well, where's their AAA team? Which city do I want to live in? Because I'm expecting, I'm not going to go to the major league. So it's like, all right. I'm like, well, the Mets AAA is in Vegas. So that's cool. That's close to home, and it's Vegas. And I'm like, and the A's AAA is in, at the time, Sacramento. So I'm like, that's close to home.
That's
so
choice 1 and 1 2.
Yeah. So I'm just like,
that's
okay.
Funny.
Yeah. So I end up, Terry Collins swung the whatever,
Yeah.
and so, when the big league manager calls you, you got to go. So I signed with the Mets, going to spring training, and have a great year, have a great spring training. But they had two other lefties that were on the 40-man roster. So I knew it was an uphill battle.
Who were they? Because I'll probably know
Josh Edgin and Robert Carson.
There you go.
Yeah.
I remember those guys.
So one of my best friends is Josh Satin. And, he's the middle infielder with the Mets.
Yeah, I remember him too, of course.
Yeah, so we'd work out together. So he goes, hey, look, like, you signed with the Mets. Like, come with me. Like, I'll show you around. Like, we lived together in spring training. It was me, Josh Satin, Matt Harvey, living together in spring training. And yeah, so I had a great spring training, and I'm sitting there going like, Robert Carson's giving up bombs.
He gave up a few in the major leagues in
spring training. I remember just going, and Edgin's doing okay, but he's not doing great. I'm like doing way better than them, but I'm going, I've seen this story before. It doesn't matter how well I'm doing. These two guys are on the 40-man roster.
They're younger. They're a little younger than you.
They're younger. Politics are going to play out. Like, no chance is this, going to happen. I'm like, but I'm just going to keep doing my thing. I'm going to keep my head down and just kind of go after it. And I remember it was the last game before the team was going to head up to New York for a couple of games, and I go in there and they had Carson pitch first. He did fine, and then I pitched an inning or two after him. And I walk in after I pitch. And I go into the clubhouse. I'm going to get my do my routine after pitching, and I see Carson sitting in his locker, just like head down, like towel over his head. I just go up to him like, hey man, what happened? Like you did well. Like, what's going on? And he just like, he couldn't talk. He didn't want to talk to me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, damn, like, all right, whatever. So I go sit in my locker, and Dan Warden, the pitching coach, comes and taps on my shoulder, and he goes, hey, Terry wants to see you. And I was just like, I look at him like deer in the headlights look, right? Like, oh, really? Like, I'm going to get sent down. He goes,
yeah, this could go either way.
Like what's going to happen? He winks at me and goes, don't worry. It's a good thing.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh my God, dude, I can't even remember the walk into his office, but I remember he was there. Paul DePodesta was there. Paul DePodesta has this contract on the table, and, congratulate me for making the team, sign the contract, my hands shaking and stuff. I still don't believe it. So it was, go out, immediately go outside, call my dad. And it was just like, again, like both of us, it was surreal. It was crying. It was kinda,
I bet. Yeah. Wow.
Again, it was just the accumulation of everything.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So we fly up to New York. We do
for the beginning of the season.
Yeah. Get on a charter flight. It's a whole different lifestyle than flying like commercial planes, stuff like that. We had a special flight where we fly all over like middle Manhattan and go down, and yeah, man, life changed forever. And
what do you remember from your Mets teammates from early in that season, and even just flying to New York?
LaTroy Hawkins took me under his wing. He was with the Orioles when I was with the Orioles, so he really took me under his wing and understood like what I came through and the adversity. I remember Justin Turner came up to me and was one of the first people to congratulate me. And
maybe the Mets should have held on to him.
Yeah,
perhaps.
Perhaps. So I remember he was one of the first guys to come and congratulate me. Yeah, and so it was. All the guys were they couldn't believe it. It was one of those things like, in a way it was almost embarrassing. It got to that point to where it was really cool, but then I got the attention for being this guy that never got there to finally get in there.
Yeah.
In a way I was a little embarrassed because I'm like, well, shit, I've always been good enough. It's like, I've always been, I've played against all of you guys, and I've gotten all of you guys out, when on different teams or in the minor leagues or whatever else. So it's like, so it was a huge monkey off my back, but at the same time it was like, well, shit, now I got to go prove that, I belong, and I got to, I got a whole nother journey to go. So, yeah.
So what do you remember about your debut performance?
I remember not looking up. I remember going out there, it was the ninth inning. It was a super windy day at Citi Field. We're playing the Padres. And I remember just like going, just don't look up. I'm like, as long as you keep your hat down and you don't look up, then the stadium will look like any other AAA stadium you've been at.
Right.
But once you look up, it's got that extra tier. And that's when it's like...
it's like, holy shit.
Yeah, exactly. So, the wind's swirling because it was one of those early... It was April Fool's Day.
Yeah.
And it was, so it was early April, and it was wind swirling. I'm out there. I'm facing Nick Hundley. I remember getting him to like a 3-2 count. And I'm going, I'm not fucking walking my first hitter in the big leagues. So I throw a fastball right down the middle, a sinker, and it did exactly what it was supposed to do. Sunk right underneath his bat, struck him out. Next guy, strike out again, and then the next guy hits like a weak ground ball to David Wright. And so there's a really cool picture of me giving David like a high five.
Yeah.
Right after the game ended.
I'm going to look up all these pictures for social media for sure. I'll hunt all these down.
After my first outing, it was like he threw the ball out and standing next to me, and we like high five each other, and that was like my first game in the big leagues.
That's awesome. So, like, I mean, that must just feel incredible.
Yeah, it was cool. It was a lot of the game was kind of a blowout. So, I think we won like 9-2 or something like that. So there wasn't a huge story besides it being open day. So a lot of the reporters were all of a sudden around me, and it was, So I mean, the reporters, I really got close with the reporters as well. A lot of people just had a lot of sympathy for not sympathy, but they had a lot of
liked
admiration.
Your story.
Yeah, a lot of people started liking my story. So I became I became something because the Mets weren't supposed to be very good that year. So I don't
think they were very good that year.
No, we weren't. So
if I remember.
Yeah, so I was kind of part of a storyline a little bit, gave them something to talk about, a little something different. So yeah, so it was cool, man. Like I went out there, Terry loved me, and like I always did, I was that guy that wanted to answer the bell whenever it rang.
Yeah.
So I'd go out there every single day. I was pitching in the big leagues, and I'm leading in my first year in the big leagues. I'm leading the major leagues in appearances.
Well, that was my next question.
Yeah.
Maybe Terry loved you a little too much.
But it's my fault too. You can't blame Terry for it. Because I could have said no, but he'd come and ask me and be like, "Hey, you good?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, I'm good." Every single day, didn't matter. Didn't matter
I don't blame you.
4 days in a row. Didn't matter if I pitched 5 days in a row. LaTroy's sitting there in the bullpen going like, Ricky Bona's the bullpen coach. They're like, "Dude, you need to tell me you need a day off." I'm like, "Fuck that. Like I've waited way too long. I'm going to pitch in every single game they want me to." They're like, "You're going to blow out." I'm like, "I don't care." I'm like, "I'm going to do whatever they want me to do because I've waited way too long for this moment. I'm going to pitch and I'm going to get every single, ounce I can out of this while I can."
What did your dad think of you having this attitude? It was like, "Son, maybe you should calm down. You're if you want to have a longer career, or you're just like all in for 2013. You're just trying to embrace every pitch and every moment, just get as much as you." Was he understand?
Both, yeah, it was both. It was one of those things where I had always, I didn't have a lot of injuries. I had one injury, and it was a big one that got misdiagnosed. Before that, I'd never been on the DL in my career, so I wasn't someone that was considered injury prone. And I don't think I really ever was it, but it was one of those. So I'm like, I'm not going to get hurt. Like I've never had an injury. I tore my flexor tendon, but that was, one time. So I'm thinking like, I'm going to go out there. My arm feels fine. My arm's good. Everything's good to go. Like, if my arm starts hurting, we'll do something different. But no, so the Mets trainers, they were aware of my workload. So they were monitoring my arm and they were giving me extra work, making me come in, do stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, I was going out there and I was relishing the moment. And I was, I remember me and Brad Ziegler were, kind of communicating often because he was, submariner and he's leading the league. So we were kind of having like a nice little battle, trying to, who's going to lead the league in appearances that year. Because as a middle reliever, there's not a lot of stuff you can lead the league in, right?
Right.
So you got to find some stuff. So for me and him, it was kind of a good battle. But then all of a sudden, it was funny because I ended up getting hurt that season, but it wasn't my arm. It was I had a core muscle tear, so I had like a sports hernia. So it was one of those things where like I started feeling it. One of those things where I couldn't start lifting my leg. Just felt like I got a Charlie horse. And then I remember when it was I would face Bryce Harper all the time, and I loved facing Bryce Harper because he was one of those guys that tried to he was one of those guys that tried to intimidate you.
Yeah.
And since in the box, you try to act like if you know how he acts,
of course.
And so
he owns the place,
and
which is a right attitude to have.
And so me, who I feed off of like fear, goes right into what I want. I'm like, I want you to try and intimidate me because like because I know that I can get you that way. I love those situations when those big situations get big. Like I wanted someone to inflate their ego, and I would try to inflate their ego more because I knew that I can get them overconfident. I knew that's how I could beat them. I didn't have the best stuff, but I had, I was a lot smarter. I learned a lot of stuff. Like I used to, when I was in the minor leagues, I could throw, up to 97, but I knew if I threw 88 to 92, I'd get movement. I'd get, guys, I could throw strikes. I could do more things. So I learned to be a lot smarter in that way. So I forget where I was going with that.
I was going to ask you, speaking of Bryce Harper and great hitters, you only gave up one home run.
Never gave up home runs, ever. Yeah.
You gave up one home run in 2013 and one and I think one in 2014.
Yep.
Who do you know who you gave up that
Derek
home?
Dietrich in 2013 and Gabby Sanchez in 2014.
Both against the were both against the Marlins?
No, Gabby Sanchez with the Pirates. He pinch hit. So they had who's the first baseman? Travis Snyder. I came in to face Travis Snyder.
And they pinch
hit for him and put in Gabby Sanchez. Threw a splitty that hung
and Dietrich is as a lefty.
Dietrich, I got to 3-2 on him, and I said, well, fuck, I don't want to walk him, so I threw my only four-seam fastball I ever threw in the major leagues. I threw it to him, and he hit it for a home run.
Wow.
Walking the dugout, Dan Wortham goes, why the fuck do you throw a four-seam fastball? I'm like, I don't know, I didn't want to walk him.
Yeah, you wanted to throw a strike.
Yeah.
That guy's still around. He gets hit by pitches all the time. That's
nobody likes him.
Nobody, maybe his teammates.
Yeah.
if even that.
But, yep.
So what do you remember most as far as like on the field with the 2013 Mets, your first season? And what do you remember most about just New York or being a professional baseball player in the major leagues? What kind of jumps out at you the most as far as on the field and off the field stuff from being in the majors?
On the field, I mean, everything. I mean, everything on the field and off the field. On the field, it was the same game. The stakes were so much higher. Like the lights were so much brighter. Like games were on TV. You could feel the energy of the crowd, all that stuff. I remember one time we were in Washington. Again, I'm facing Bryce Harper. It's like a 3-2 game. We're up by a run. It's the bottom of the eighth inning. There's 2 outs. Runners on second and third. Bryce Harper's up. Bring me in. Right. And so I think it's a Sunday night game of the week. Stadium's packed, full capacity. And Bryce Harper and I are battling. And the stadium is so freaking loud. It's like, they say when you can feel the pressure. It was literally like it was so loud I couldn't hear anything, but I could feel like people screaming,
the
like pushing on my body.
That's crazy.
And so I get him to like this count. I'm throwing, we're battling. I finally get him. He grounds out to Daniel Murphy at second. And as soon as Murphy fielded the ball and throws him out, I feel the entire crowd just like at the same time lets out like a sigh, and you just feel like the air letting out of a balloon.
This is in Washington, right?
And still couldn't hear anything. My ears were ringing like you were just like leaving a concert or something. But yeah, it was just like feeling the pressure, and it was the coolest feeling to like
quiet the crowd,
to quiet down like 60,000 people at once. It was pretty interesting. That was like one of the coolest moments. Obviously going to Citi Field, being part of like the New York crowd, living in New York was just like that energy. And I mean, it's still something I think about every day, just like walking down the streets of New York.
You lived in Manhattan at the time?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Very exciting.
Yeah. Just all that energy, man. It was so cool. Like if you think about it, like all those ups and downs and all that road I traveled to finally, when you do break in the big leagues, I could have broken the big leagues in Kansas City, or in like wherever else, but I broke into New York City, man. And I was a storyline in a way because of what I had done in my past. Where it was like, a lot of people, I think, respected like what I had gone through. So I think that it was,
of course, I do.
Yeah. So I think that, they didn't know the full story, but they kind of got the gist of it. And they were like, man, this is a cool story.
It's inspiring because now whenever I feel like I might give up on something or whatever, I'll think about this. So,
right. Yeah. I mean, and that's
life's a journey.
It sure is, man. It sure is. So
how many times did you face Bryce Harper that season?
I don't even know. Anytime it was a big situation.
Yeah.
It was a lot. Anytime, I faced all of them, and that was the thing. I'd come in, I'd face Freddie Freeman, I'd face Ichiro, I'd face
all the lefties.
Yeah. I mean, you name a lefty, Adrian Gonzalez at the time, whoever, you name a lefty, and I was facing them.
Did you have a friendship or a relationship with any of these lefties that you faced off the field?
A lot of them. Yelich and I would have a great one because we'd work out together in the off season. And so it was one of those things like we'd be kind of smiling at times too, and I knew he was always sitting on sliders on me. And so all the at-bats, I would just throw fastballs and fastballs and fastballs and fastballs. And he'd kind of just be looking at me like, I'm waiting. He'd fight him off or whatever. So we had a good at-bats. A lot of the other guys too. Like I knew them all and things like that. So yeah, there's a lot of good battles and things like that. When you when you face them so many times.
That's cool. So what happened from there in 2014? Because you only played one more season in the major leagues.
Yeah,
with the Mets and in the majors.
So I had surgery because I had that sports hernia, the core muscle tear, from basically getting thrown out there every day. I remember, I think I was where I was going with that story was, I remember when it happened, Bryce Harper always, we were in Philly in a day game and he squared around to try to bunt on me because for some reason, I don't know why. And I remember taking a jab to try to get it and he missed the bunt and then it just ripped down, side of my leg. So I pitched through it a couple other times. I got to the point to where I was like Roy Hobbs, from The Natural. Like I wasn't even going out there like to warm up. I would like hobble out to the bullpen in like the 7th inning and just kind of like play catch with the wall and then just be like, yeah, Terry, I got this just whenever you need me. And that's when I probably,
This is in 24. This is the next
2013.
This is still in 2013.
And that's, I'm just throwing against the wall. Yeah. Whenever you need me, like I'll get out there. And I was just like, it finally got to the point I'm like, I just can't do this anymore. I find I'm like, if I gotta have the surgery. So I had the surgery, ended my rookie year. Then, 2014 go in, I'm healthy after the surgery for the most part. And, it's my first year going into big league camp, being on the team. Like I'm going to make the team. So it was a whole different experience for me. All of a sudden going from a guy, it's like them saying, yeah, you got a chance to make the team, to being already penciled, not even penciled. I'm markered in, whatever you want to. Yeah. I'm on the team. So spring training was a little different. I also wasn't fully 100% healthy with this thing. It wasn't really responding the way I wanted it to. So my legs weren't as strong. I didn't have my legs under me. So we get into the season and immediately I'm not using my legs as much as I can. So I'm relying more on my arm. And about 2 weeks into the season, my elbow just starts barking on me. My fingers start going numb and there's something wrong with my elbow. So I tried pitching through it. Things were getting rough. I'm seeing a doctor. They're like, yeah, you might have something. I'm getting to that point. Like, what do I do? Do I get an MRI? They kind of look at it and they say, yeah, you got a bone spur in there and it's kind of irritating some things. So it comes down to it. I tried to pitch through it. I'm like, I want to battle through this. I think I can pitch through it. And I shouldn't have, and it's funny, I went from being a really great story in 2013, the way New York fans are, as 2014, it's what have you done for me lately? And no one knew I was trying to battle through something and that's fine. That's kind of part of it all. But yeah, I should have not been pitching that year. So I ended up halfway through the season, I had surgery. And so
you only pitched 13 innings and
had a lot of walks.
You appeared in 32 games though.
Yeah. Terry was still throwing me out there every day, but I wasn't the same, man. I couldn't, my elbow just wasn't right. Didn't have my legs under me. So so I ended up opting to have the surgery and that was I finally broke after pitching, so many games. I think of those 32 games, while I was up there, we played in 62 games. I pitched in 32 of them and I warmed up in a total of 58 of them. So I only had 4 days off. You know what I mean? So it was like an everyday thing. Yeah. So, eventually it was going to go.
What did Gary Cohen call you? Every day, every minute rice?
Something like that.
I forgot what he called.
Yeah, I think it was every minute rice.
Something like that. Yeah.
So that was me being stubborn. And, I knew that the way I got there was by going out there and taking the ball every day. And I wasn't going to let being dumb, I wasn't going to let an injury take it away from me.
Sure.
But in retrospect, I probably should have realized, okay, I get healthy and whatever else. So yeah, that was the beginning of my career, of the end.
Yeah, because I see you pitched, I guess, in AAA with the Vegas 51s in 2014 and 15, trying to make it back, and then with Arizona, I see.
Yeah, so 2015, if you look at my numbers, I had a great year. I did incredible. I had like a 1.9 ERA pitching in Vegas.
1.82.
Yeah. I was back to where I needed to be, doing everything I needed to do, but it just got to that point where all of a sudden, some reason, the New York, the Mets fans and Terry and the organization just wanted to go a different direction. You know, I don't know why, but that was what they wanted to do. So yeah, the next year I signed with the Diamondbacks, going to spring training to hopefully make the team, and started off having like a little bit of a didn't do too well. They released me, and it got to the point where all these teams were all I'm like, I just can't go through that ringer again, man.
Right.
You know, I called some teams. I went and played independent ball. I tried to do it, but my heart wasn't in it. My wife,
I see you played for same York.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the same York Revolution team again?
Yep. Same York Revolution.
Yep.
Yeah. So I had a baby that year too. 2015, I had a baby, and so yeah, like I was saying, you know, in the beginning of this, that just changed my perspective. I got to the point where I'm like, I don't want to grind anymore. I've seen all these people when they're growing up, all these kids growing up where the dads don't see their kids go on the road half the time. I'm like, my career is at that point. I reached the pinnacle. I can try to grind it out for a couple more years, but I want to be there for my kids.
Sure.
So, yeah.
So you started to transition out of baseball, and where did we go from there? Did you take some time off?
Yeah, it took about a year, almost 2 years to try to like figure out what I wanted to do. I still kind of worked out, staying in baseball shape, but I started trying to, you know, figure out what I want to do next in my life. So, you know, my dad being in construction, I always wanted to do construction. So I'm like, hey, Dad, like let's do this. And he didn't really want me to. He didn't want me to do construction. He goes, find something else. He goes, go coach, go be in baseball, go do something. And I just didn't want to do it. You know, I wanted to be home with my kids. I'm like, I wanted to end that baseball chapter. So it took me like 2 years. I kind of mourned baseball, didn't watch baseball, didn't really do anything. I just like kind of just wanted to completely separate myself from it and just like live life for the first time.
It's interesting how you say more, because I remember hearing Keith Hernandez talk about when he retired, he didn't watch baseball for 6 years. He didn't follow the game.
Yeah.
It almost sounded like he was just like burned out on it. But you used the word more, and it almost sounds like a little bit of a different thing. You needed to like.
Yeah, it was
part of you had died, or part of your life was gone.
You know, it was my identity, and you know, for my whole life, I was a baseball player. I was, you know, and I that was a lot of my identity. You know, I have a lot of other things, you know, around me, but you know, that was what I did. That was who I am, and so it was different. All of a sudden, I had to reinvent myself and be like, okay, now who am I? And so, yeah, it took me a while to mourn baseball. My dad, you know, didn't want me to do construction, so I said, well, you know, I want to do something with homes, because that was always my second dream. You know, going around as a kid, it was go to batting cages or go to job sites and see the homes my dad was building. So, I decided, you know, maybe I got him eventually to be like, okay, we're gonna do, maybe we'll do like a flip, you know, because it was kind of like the hot thing, like in 17 or 16.
Yeah.
He's all right. Like if you can find a property, like we'll do a flip. So found a house, we buy it. You know, I start working with him, he's making me do like a lot of the work and stuff, and like showing me, you know, we got his guys and stuff. And by the end of the day, we go and we sell the house, and the realtor made almost as much as we did. And I'm just like, shit, like the realtor's making all this money. She didn't do hardly any work. I just did all this work. And, you know, so I'm like, I'm gonna get my real estate license, and then I'm gonna do flips. Then I'm gonna get the money on the realtor side, and I'm gonna get the money on the other side.
There you go.
So that's what I did. I got my real estate license, and that's kind of what I do. You know, my dad owns a lot of commercial buildings throughout the valley and throughout the LA area. I manage those with my real estate license. I do commercial real estate. I do residential real estate. I'm building homes. So I've just been kind of trying to find my niche as far as real estate, kind of just like the way I did with baseball, trying to figure out where I fit. And, you know, like I found out my fit was a lefty reliever coming in and getting Bryce Harper out into tough situations. So now I'm just figuring out what my fit's going to be in real estate. So
it sounds like you're enjoying the ride so far.
It's a cool journey, man. It's been, it's different, you know, being an ex-major leaguer, you know, opens a lot of doors, you know, got me on this podcast, you know, things like that, you know, this thing's big time. And so doing stuff, you know, doing a lot of this stuff is, it's amazing how different my life became once I got to the major leagues. It's like now, you know, I do baseball camps for kids, and I'm an ex-Major League Baseball player. You get a lot more kids. It resonates with people a lot more than saying,
Just saying that sentence.
Yeah, I could say I was a professional baseball player or whatever else, and that's cool. That's really great. But not everyone can say they were ex-Major League Baseball player.
Right.
So, and that's really cool to be able to say, especially because I feel like if anybody, I definitely earned it. I paid my dues.
So.
I paid my dues. I worked, my ass off, and I got to there, and so I really appreciate every single second.
It's truly inspiring. Do you keep in touch with it sounds like you do keep in touch with a lot of your ex-teammates and guys from the game and all that?
I talked to a lot of them. I finally went to my first baseball game this summer when the Mets came back. I finally was like, I got to pull this Band-Aid off. I started watching games.
Haven't been to a professional baseball game since 2014?
2015. Yeah. No. Or 2016, whatever my last year was playing. Yeah. 2016, I think. Yeah, no, I didn't watch baseball, didn't do anything. Until finally, all of a sudden this summer, I started watching a couple of games if they were on. I had to change channels as soon as it came on. I started like, a couple pitches I'll watch, and then a couple pitches turned into an inning, and then an inning turned into a couple more innings or whatever. And then I got a call, I think, from the physical therapist with the Mets. And he just called me. He was like, hey, like, we're coming into town, like, this date or this date. And I'm like, yeah, cool, whatever.
A friend of yours from back in the
he was a physical therapist with the Mets. Gotcha. So so he was still traveling with the team and stuff. Mm-hmm. And then the team came in town this summer. I'm like, I'm going to go out there, rip the Band-Aid off. And it was cool. It was still kind of weird, I'm out there and I'm like, on the field, but I'm like in my street clothes, and I'm like talking to like Syndergaard and DeGrom and all my buddies and stuff, and just like, nothing's really changed except for the fact that I'm like kind of in my street clothes, and all of a sudden they're, as far as that, but it's like they're going in, they're getting ready, and I'm just like, man, like, but then as I'm walking up, as the like batting practice ends, I'm just like, man, this sucks. Like, those juices are starting to flow again. I
believe it. Yeah.
I'm underneath the stadium, and I see Kershaw, who when I was with the Dodgers, him and I got pretty close, and I start talking to him, and and again, I'm just like, man, like, these juices are flowing. Like, I'm seeing more of my buddies, and I see Turner, and I'm just like, but then I turn the corner, I'm waiting to get in the elevator to go up to my seats, and David Wright's there, and he's talking with Mike Nickius, who is an ex-player with the Mets. I remember. And I grew up with Nickius, and stuff, and so all of a sudden, it put everything in perspective. It's like David Wright's there, another dude that I grew up with and played with, and it's like, and we're all sitting there, all three of us are in the same boat, like we're not playing. And so it really was like cool. It was like, it finally like, closed the door to like my whole, to everything with baseball. And I got peace with,
Because it almost reminded you, it sounds like that, like whether you're a all-star, a Hall of Famer, a guy who played one inning, a guy who played one season, it's going to end for everyone at some point. So just kind of appreciate whatever the game gave to you.
For sure. So it was really cool. It was really cool, talk with them and, talk about their families and whatever else is going on, and, just catching up, and then, realizing, everything comes to an end, and you appreciate what you had, and you appreciate the journey.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate your time and appreciate you sharing your story. It's awesome, inspiring. Yeah. If there's anything else you want to plug, how people can find you, your real estate business or anything like that.
Yeah, you can go to rbirealestate.com. That's my website. I'm doing real estate throughout, the LA area. If anyone needs a home, if anyone wants to build a home, all that stuff, I got, all your real estate needs. But
what does the RBI stand for?
RBI, it's a baseball synonym. It's
it doesn't stand for real estate, brokerage.
No, I just kind of, I wanted to brand myself. I wanted to, use the baseball thing on there. So I thought that RBI was a lot better than, like strikeout.
I was gonna ask about that, going for the hitting thing.
Yeah, so I was going, if you get it, you get it. If you don't, it's but it just is something that kind of, it's the way I'm branding myself as far as my real estate. So
it is. It's your chance to finally brand yourself as a hitter, when you have the chance to.
Exactly. It is funny a pitcher going with RBI, but that's exactly it.
It's great.
I still got that hitting in me.
Well, sounds good. Best of luck moving forward with the real estate, with everything, and that's it, man. I appreciate it.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for letting me talk. Soon.
So there you have it. My conversation with Scott Rice. Wow. What is there to say? What a truly inspiring story that really even transcends the game of baseball. Just hearing Scott's story makes me want to work that much harder. I feel like it's hard for me to make any excuses about anything ever now. Anyway, I again thank Scott for being so gracious with his time. For everything about this show, of course, head to peoplewelovepodcast.com. And I think that's about all I got for today. Y'all have a good one, and let's go Mets. Peace.